After 12 years of Catholic education, I finally figured out I must have been absent on all the days we were learning about forgiveness. Because whatever we learned, it couldn't have been this crazy, perverted way of thinking about forgiveness that we see in this video.
Good evening, Chris. People who know Jared Plessick say they are heartbroken by his death. He's described as a sweet guy, full of faith and very giving. Jared Plessick worked at this Salvation Army in Cleveland's Collinwood neighborhood for the past several years. The 21-year-old was a Bible study teacher here and also mentored to kids, playing sports with them and working out with them in the gym. He graduated from Villa Angela St. Joseph in 2014. Friends from VASJ say he was incredibly smart and could have gone to college wherever he wanted, but he chose to stay here in Cleveland and minister. He attended church every Sunday at the Salvation Army, and his friends say this morning's service was particularly difficult for everyone. Plessick mentored Martin Smith through the Salvation Army for the past 7 years.
Jared is not a person to give up on somebody that he cared about. Just like my friend said, he's loving and caring. He's a caring person. It doesn't matter how badly you wrong him. He's going to forgive you in the end.
The people we talked with today at the Salvation Army said that Jared would have taken that forgiveness to the person who shot him. They told us he would want his friends and family to forgive the person accused of killing him. Live in Cleveland, Carly Flynn, working Channel 3 News.
A powerful message from that family. Carly, thanks very much. Cleveland police did arrest a suspect in the case Carly's talking about, 27-year-old William Ted Jones here. Tonight he faces a slew of charges from Cleveland police, including aggravated murder, grand theft, felonious assault, and fleeing and eluding police. More charges expected from Lakewood police as well down the road. They brought him to custody about an hour after they say he killed Plessick, and in the meantime attempted to steal at least 4 cars.
Look, I get the forgiveness thing on a lot of different levels. I mean, on a religious level, right? Christ on the cross, he was telling his Father in heaven to forgive them. They know not what they do. Okay, so that's kind of central to that whole Christian thing. I get that. I get it on a psychological level, that if somebody does you a harm, we shouldn't be walking around, minute to minute, day after day, always weighing us down, messing up our minds until we can somehow get retribution. I get that too. But what I don't get is all these people with a misunderstanding of what personal forgiveness is. So this guy in this video, he decided he wanted to, he was known as a guy who forgave people, right? And it was weird. I mean, there's always so many. So these interviews are always so rich, but we never get to hear a lot of what's really behind them. We hear one guy goes, oh yeah, he forgave people all the time whenever somebody would do something bad to him. What was this guy? Like, was he some kind of masochist? He had a sign up saying on himself saying, hey, whatever you feel like doing to me, however you want to lie, cheat, threaten, steal, and ultimately kill me, I'm okay with that because I am morally superior to you and I will forgive you. On a crazy level, on a certain crazy level, if you want to forgive somebody and somebody who's done you wrong, as long as it's all on you, that's fine. I mean, if you want to forgive somebody and invite them into your house, he's like a killer or something, you want to invite him over to your barbecue and something like that, fine. But where we run into trouble is when people are forgiving people on our behalf. So on the videos we're about to see, we're going to see we're going to see 5 or 6 examples here of people who are doing really nasty business, most of it black on white crime, violent crime, lots of it to old people. What struck me about these videos after watching this video out of Cleveland is that this was not the first time these guys have been involved in this kind of criminality. But somehow, because crime is the new black entitlement, that means when we catch black people committing crimes, we have to forgive them. I'm not just talking about you and me individually. I'm talking about judges, juries, prosecutors, parole officers, probation people, parole boards, They let people out of prison. On some level, they're decreeing that, oh yeah, you know, whatever we thought you did, we are going to be bigger than that. We are going to set an example for you and show you some forgiveness. But see, you don't have the right to do that on our behalf. You only have the right to do that on your behalf. If you are suicidal enough to forgive people like this guy right now, who goes into a, what do you call it, a vestibule of an apartment building, a lobby. The girl's trying to put her, white kid's trying to put her key in the lock. Black guy comes up and robs her. Do you think that's the first time he's ever been caught doing that? Think he's ever been in front of a judge? Think he's ever been forgiven for that kind of behavior in high school or in a court system? Of course he has. And what about this little old lady at a Rite Aid?
The surveillance video is upsetting. An elderly woman walking into a Citrus Heights Rite Aid store, and a man runs right into her, knocking her unconscious. While lying on her back, another man jumps over her body on his way out.
This bothers me. This bothers me a lot.
Citrus Heights police say around 6 p.m. Monday, the three men jumped over the pharmacy counter demanding prescriptions from employees. Fearful, the employees handed over the drugs and the suspects took off.
They're committing this crime. They're knocking somebody that's 86 years old. First of all, can't defend themselves. Second of all, they're very vulnerable to injuries.
Police say the 86-year-old had no pulse after being knocked down and was taken to the hospital in critical condition. Now, Citrus Heights police are looking into whether or not the suspects in the robbery of this Rite Aid are responsible for other robberies in the area.
So we do know that we've had a recent pharmacy robbery similar to this one where nobody was injured in that one. And we also know that in surrounding jurisdictions in the county and the city of Sacramento, there have been similar incidents that happened.
Citrus Heights police believe prior to this robbery, these men were also caught on camera walking into a Walgreens in Del Paso Heights, but no crime was committed there. Investigators think they know why.
The pharmacy had bandit barriers, which prevents people from being able to jump over the counters.
Police are asking you to take a close look at the suspects here, and if you recognize them, call Citrus Heights police.
Down in Tuscaloosa, somebody who's actually connected to this channel, I think this woman that we're seeing here is kind of connected to this channel one way or another. I mean, she's just sitting at a counter, trying to make a living, earning 10, 12, 15 bucks an hour. Fella comes up, starts punching her in the face. You think that's the first time he ever did that? Are we required to forgive him the way other people have forgiven him? Because if we forgive him, no, it's not really about him and it's not about you. Because if we forgive him, what we're really doing is sentencing the next person that they meet. We're sentencing them to some horrific level of crime and violence and even murder. I mean, we don't see much on this video out of Bridgeport. Just a bunch of fellas in a car, parking their car, going into the house of a 91-year-old woman, beating the hell out of her, and leaving. So we don't see the actual crime, but you trying to tell me these guys, this is the first time they ever did it, first time they ever got caught. No, that's not the way the world is working out there. People are getting caught, it's catch and release. Why is it catch and release? Because everybody has decided we have to forgive these guys for all the white racism we've been inflicting upon them that forced them to commit these crimes. Somehow they've taken some relatively obscure religious idea of forgiveness and turned it into some let's take advantage of the sucker idea. It's suicidal. How about these fellas here? They cruise up to a little old lady's house, beat the hell out of her. Forgiveness, anyone?
After being accused of beating and stealing from a 63-year-old woman in Greenpoint. News 12 Brooklyn's Joanna Hernandez is in front of the 73rd precinct with more on this story.
That suspect is 17-year-old Christopher Phillips, and police tell us he was the lookout for the other person who followed the 63-year-old woman into her home and attacked her. Just take a look. That's Phillips walking inside the 73rd precinct yesterday with detectives. He is being charged with 2 counts of robbery. Police say the 63-year-old woman was walking into her home near Morgan Avenue and Sutton Street around 10:30 p.m. on Tuesday last week when she was attacked. The 2 men just got away with over $40 and a cell phone. Investigators are currently looking for the other suspect, who they say repeatedly punched the 63-year-old woman in the face and head before running off with her purse. You can see in the surveillance video the 2 suspects walking up to the victim's home. Police say the other suspect they're looking for was also wearing a dark-colored hoodie, dark pants, and colored sneakers. The woman is currently recovering from a fractured eye socket and bruising and swelling to the face. Investigators are still looking for Phillips' partner in crime and hope he turns himself in as well. From the 73rd Precinct, Joanna Hernandez, News 12, Brooklyn.
And down in the Bronx, somebody wanted some money. Somebody didn't want to give him the money. I can't tell if that's a woman or a man beating the hell out of this woman, this victim.
They're searching for a woman who attacked and robbed a senior citizen in the Bronx last week. Surveillance video of the suspect in the Highbridge Deli just released. Police say the victim, a 70-year-old woman, had just gotten some cash from an ATM. The suspect asked for money when the woman refused. Police say the suspect followed her outside the deli, punched her in the head, then stole her cell phone and $20.
Up for forgiving her? If you are you also up for taking responsibility for what happens to the next person? I doubt it. I doubt it. Because people who toss around this word forgiveness like it's a piece of cotton candy, all they know, that's not really, morals is all about decisions and consequences. That's morality. And so your version of forgiveness is decisions and no consequences. That's the anti-morality. I mean, what about this dude in my little home state of Delaware? He shot 5 people. 5 people. He's a mass shooter. And I can never tell with these guys who are shooting 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people at a time. Happens a lot in the hood. And since people don't seem to get this, I'll just say it again, 80% of mass shooters are black. Sorry. I mean, what's that worth? You shoot 5 people. In Delaware, it's worth 12 years. That's your sentence. 6 years. You shoot 5 people, you get 6 years in prison. Don't you think there's some crazy people involved in that decision process who are literally insane, who are saying, yes, we have to forgive this guy for shooting 5 people. That's why we're only going to give him 6 years. I'm sure he won't shoot 6 more people when he gets out, because it's our fault he's even there in the first place. Down in Tampa, we found at least one guy with his head on straight about the idea of forgiveness.
His arm in a sling, his nerves still rattled.
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it happened.
Toby Anderson couldn't be more grateful to be alive.
I could have had cuts. I could have lost a limb. I could have been killed.
Anderson doesn't remember much of the accident. He says the impact of the airbag blurred his memory, but he remembers the shock of seeing 4 teens run away.
What were you thinking?
Moments later, Ryan Carcajena took off. He and his coworkers chasing the teens.
I don't want to see a world where people can just hit whoever they want and walk away like it's not their fault, People got to pay for what they do.
Carcajena held the teenagers for several minutes until police arrived.
This is the world we live in, and if we don't protect it, then it's going to go to chaos.
In Pinellas County, teens are crashing stolen cars every 4 days, putting all of us, like Anderson, in danger. Dewey Caruthers just launched a 6-month study to look into the problem and find solutions.
We're not going to wrest our way out of this problem. And that secondly, what we're currently doing is not working.
Anderson hopes it happens soon. The next innocent victim might not be as lucky as him.
More people will die, or more people their lives will be affected the rest of their life. I was lucky. This isn't going to last long, but it could have been much worse.
It's weird about Tampa. We did a story on this a few months ago. Anybody remember former Governor Charlie Crist? He was a Republican. Now he's the Democratic congressman from the Tampa area. Anyway, because when you're a Democratic congressman, you basically don't have anything else to do. So he kind of had a big community meeting in the Tampa, Fort Myers area about a thing. It's a thing in Tampa. The fellas go around stealing cars, carjacking cars, and they crash them. It's like a thing down there, just like we just saw. And, they had this big meeting with lots of experts lining up, scratching their head, going, man, what the heck's going on here? Just like this guy in the last video. We're not going to arrest our way out of this mess. No. On some level, this clown thinks we're going to forgive our way out of this mess. We're going to talk our way out of this mess. We're going to let this idiot convince other people that somehow the people who are committing these horrific levels of crime and violence, somehow they're not responsible for their own acts. And even if they are responsible for their own acts, shouldn't we kind of overlook it? Shouldn't we forgive them? Again, I must have missed all this stuff when I was doing my 12 years in Catholic school. We must have talked about it in class. But the weird thing about this whole forgiveness thing is that I don't hear anybody even asking for forgiveness. I hear people sorry they got caught. We hear that all the time. But if you're a person who dispenses forgiveness like little things out of a Pez container, then all of a sudden you kind of forfeit your right to be a victim. You're now a volunteer. So if you're going through the world like Johnny Appleseed, spreading all this goodness and love and everything, you are now, you have to take responsibility for your own behavior. But most people don't want to do that because the same people who are talking about forgiveness, you better believe they live very, very, very far away from anybody in their lives who they would ever have to forgive for any kind of crime and violence. The more you live, the more likely you are, the more you live behind a gated community, the more likely you are to believe in forgiveness. The less likely you are to make the black kids angry.